Well, hello, I'm Burke Jones. I'm the host of School Facilities and Operations podcast. And today I've got with me Dane Estok from Mahaney Roofing. And we're going to talk about all things roofing related, from what we should be looking at on an annual maintenance kind of time frame, as well as some best practices when we're looking at doing a full roof replacement. So, Dane, welcome to the podcast.
Thanks, Burke. It's good to be here.
So tell me a little bit about your career, like to this point, and then one other thing, like tell me one thing that's interesting about you that we won't read about on LinkedIn.
I like it. Yeah, I'd be happy to. At this point, I still consider myself a young gun, so uh, that is what it is. But traveled quite a bit recently, and so I'm born and raised in Chicago, and so I grew up in the time where the Chicago Bulls and Chicago sports were just amazing, and so it's fun to be in Wichita and have those memories, and then not see many sports happenings in Wichita. So I'm coming to
Right.
grips with that. But in terms of career, I went to school in Chicago. I was a theology, philosophy, and business major, and so came across academically kind of a wide variety of stuff. After college, I got married, and my wife and I decided to go to Nashville, Tennessee for a little bit. I have some music in my blood, and so wanted to get that out at a young age, and we did, and it was a wonderful experience. Moved to Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania after that experience in Nashville, and then I started working for an engineering firm and collecting data, particularly stream data. It was coal mining operations the engineering firm was a part of, and so they would want to see how the coal mining was influencing the water in the area, and so that was kind of a kickoff point to my professional non-music career, and I loved it. And so there came this theme of turning spatial data into story and art through maps and different kind of graphics, and so that captivated my heart. And so I went back to school, got a degree in geographic information systems, and so really kicked off an interest in all things geography and where things are located, how different things in different areas respond to certain variables and all that. And so after that, started working at a really neat industrial developer in Western Pennsylvania. And so we were a private nonprofit that used strategic partnerships in the state and federally, if applicable, to develop old brownfield sites. And so
Oh, wow.
to see the transformation of, in the Rust Belt, you had a lot of steel mills. Our company would own that land, and then we would remediate it and build on it, and build it into cool tech centers. And so there was neat juxtaposition of old steel versus new tech, and so it was really fun to be a part of. We also owned 7-8 million square feet of space, and so that really got my interest turning in terms of buildings and the built environment, roofing, and all the systems involved as an owner's rep. And so I loved what I was doing. I loved that company. I did not want to leave it. And my wife has a brother-in-law and his wonderful family here in Wichita. And over the years of visiting back and forth, he finally got us out to move. And so one of the reasons we moved was two reasons: to be close to family, but then met some guys at Mahaney, and I really liked them. I liked what they were doing. And so I like to say I humbled myself, and I started working for a subcontractor. And so that's my quick story of my career so far. Um,
Art, music, engineering, all the
yeah,
way to roof membranes.
that's right. That's right. It's
What did
insanity.
you
And
play
so
did you play an instrument?
I did, yes. So I play guitar, and so I love guitar. I love songwriting, but my time in Nashville really made it clear that I love writing more than I love like being a musician and staying up late. Burke, I go
Yeah,
to bed at 8:30 every night. I can't be a musician. It's like it just doesn't work.
yeah, no kidding.
But you asked about something interesting. I think that maybe is not on the paper trail. I actually got my private pilot license when I was 17, And I was on the path to become a professional pilot, but then decided I did not want to be traveling all my life. And so that's something for you.
That's cool. So do you still fly?
I don't. No,
Yeah.
we have 3 kids, and so I'm forbidden to fly until they're 18 or older.
Yeah, I understand. I
In case
understand.
I go down and I'm not around anymore. Uh, that's the idea.
Yeah. Well, I mean, we've worked together, full disclosure, but I mean, you do have, I would say, a unique perspective kind of in how you approach roofing and kind of the passion you bring. So, I mean, yeah, there's the roofs we put on there, but like, what makes your day tick? Like, what makes it exciting for you?
Yeah. Yeah. So roofing, I heard, this can probably be applied to anything, but I heard in this industry that you don't find roofing, it finds you. And so that's exactly what happened. Never in a million years did I think I'd work for a roofing contractor or a subcontractor in general, but man, I'm having a lot of fun. And I think, what gets me up in the morning for a day job is just the absolute chaos that comes with being a subcontractor. In particular, a roofing contractor. There is always a problem, and so I love solving problems. Uh, Found a bunch of people at Mahaney that love solving problems, and so I think that's number one is solving problems for people, which I love, and then number two is I think the clients we work with day in and day out are just phenomenal. And I think we're kind of wired the same where we just like to learn about people. And I find myself, instead of a roofing issue or a roof leak or an issue with the inside of the building or the envelope, that's happening, but then it's also a potential relationship to get moving. And so that's really what inspires me day in and day out for the day job. Yeah.
Fantastic. I mean, I think that's what keeps me going too. So,
Yeah.
so let's dive in a little bit. So, I think there's kind of two areas I want to focus on. One is what should we be looking at as facilities guys on just the annual maintenance of our roofs? And then the second piece is if we're going to do a replacement, what are some things we need to be looking at there to make sure we end up with quality work and a quality contractor? So let's
Yeah.
focus on annual maintenance. Like what are some recommendations or best practices we should be looking at? Because I mean, I know every time it leaks, or every time it rains, we have a leak somewhere. If you have more than one
True.
roof, even if you only have one roof, you probably still have a leak somewhere. So, talk us through kind of what annual maintenance looks like and what it can do for us longer term.
Yeah. Yeah. So annual maintenance is good for anything. It's good for our bodies, and it's good for your rooftops. And so, and it's good for every system you have in the built environment. And so, if you're new to annual maintenance on a rooftop, the idea is to solve problems, find problems, repair problems before they become large problems. And then that'll help you keep your costs over time low. And then it'll also help you extend the life cycle of your rooftop. And so just like anything, you want to love on it and take care of small issues before they become big. As a school facility operations director team, it's much like the subcontractor world. I imagine there is always something happening, and so for whatever reason, people are less focused on what they can't see on the rooftop and more focused, rightfully so, with inside and what they can see and hear, touch, taste. And so, roofing's a mystery, and that's another reason I kind of like it. It has a mysterious quality to it, and so I found myself liking that as well. But Burke, you are so busy during the day, and the last thing you want to deal with is a roof leak. And so, but it's one of those weird things where your roof is really, really important, but for whatever reason, when a leak comes up or you think about rooftops, you don't want to do it. And so, and maybe you do, maybe I'm putting words in your mouth, but that's where
You're
we
right.
really love to come in and pretend we're on your team or somebody's team and go do it for you. And so in terms of annual maintenance, you know, some people have in-house talent that can go up on a rooftop. They like adventure. They like the craziness of it, and they'll go walk it. And as an owner's rep, if you can get up there monthly, probably the best case scenario. You want to make sure your roof drains are flowing. They're not blocked. I know on schools and other private schools and all that, kids can throw stuff on the rooftops a lot. And so the roof drains really can get clogged by like balls and other debris that's thrown up there. And so at minimum, if you do anything in terms of maintenance, you want to make sure the storm water is sheeting where it should be correctly. That's the whole purpose of a rooftop, is to get water to a particular place to get it out of there. And so that's number one. And so you kind of have to understand the whole rooftop, because if it's not going to drain well, then it's going to find somewhere to go, and that's where you start getting leaks. And if you have not had any preventative maintenance inspections, that water will find ways in. So back to, if you can get somebody up there once a month just to look at the basics, it can save you a lot of pain. Now, not a lot of people want to do that. And so that's where a good contractor comes in. And so at minimum, we suggest annual maintenance, inspections, preventative maintenance, at least 2 times a year. We'll want to do this when the temperatures shift, ideally. And so in the spring and fall are typically the best times. In the spring, you're coming after winter and things are expanding. The fall, you're grabbing all the leaves, getting them off the rooftop. And then you're also checking for any contraction with the cold weather and issues that come with that. Roofing materials are pretty crazy. They range from plastic to rubber to tar-based materials. And so those temperature shifts can really change things. So that's number one. Number two is just debris that happens. Wichita's pretty windy, I've learned, the past couple of years. And so the stuff that gets on the rooftop, it can mess it up bad. And so you want to make sure nothing has punctured or scraped walls or done anything crazy on the rooftop. And that'll save you a lot of sanity. And then creatures, we have creatures that like to make nests and burrow and do stuff on the roof. And so at minimum, you just want to get them off and make sure they're not vacationing or retiring on your rooftop.
Yeah. Do you deal with a lot of ballasted roofs these days?
Yeah, Wichita has a lot of big buildings, and there's still a lot of ballast rooftops. We're actually working with a client that has a lot of ballast, and it's cost effective because you're not fastening or adhering the roof membrane down. You're simply laying rocks on top of it. And it's interesting, this one client we're working with right now actually likes it from the aesthetic. So it's a tall building that looks down on some lower sections, and they like the look of the rock and they want to keep it ballast. And so that's the first I've heard that people like it for aesthetic reasons, but then it also has just a very practical, low cost system. Now, ballast can cause a ton of problems because you can't see under the rock. And so when there are issues, we don't give up, Burke. That's what I'll say.
Yeah.
But yeah, we do see a lot of ballast in this area.
Yeah, I asked that because I've seen, I've been surprised on how much the wind can move the rock. Like I've been on some rooftops. We don't have any in our district, but I've been on some rooftops in my previous career where, like in the corner or somewhere, the rock would just be over time, or in big storms would be moved. And
Yeah,
clearly it's a big problem because then you don't have anything holding that membrane down.
yeah,
But yeah, then the leak finding is really hard with it as well.
yeah. And wind, man, that's severe wind to move the ballast. But one thing we've seen is, over time, if you have different service providers or contracts come up to the rooftop and they are looking for an issue, they will sometimes remove a large area of ballast, and they will not forget to cover it back up. And that's a good point. That's something you definitely want to look out for. And so if you do have an annual maintenance team or a program you're a part of, that's something on a ballast rooftop that's pretty important.
So if you have a leak, like like I know that our insulation can become saturated and stuff with water, but do you worry about that if the leak's fixed relatively quickly? Or when does that begin to become a bigger problem?
Yeah, that's a good question. So, as an owner, if I own buildings, or who I like to use my grandma as an example, and the idea is that you like your grandma, and if grandma owns 10 buildings, you want to take really good care of her. And so you do not want water in your building if it's not planned. And so the overall strategy of a rooftop maintenance program is to keep it watertight. And you say why? And if the insulation gets compromised, it affects R value, it affects the performance of the system, which does what to grandma? It increases costs down the road, because when that membrane is end of life, the assumption is you want to save the underlying insulation. And if it's compromised over years of neglect and it's just wet and it's falling apart, you have to replace that, and that drives up costs, maybe $1, $2 per square foot. Right. And so really, you want to keep your costs low over time. But then in the immediate issue is you want to get water out of your building. And so, leaks are interesting depending what kind of deck you have. And so, a lot of school districts probably have metal deck, steel deck right now. And so those can travel a long distance. And so they can be very tricky. And, the point is you want to locate that as quickly as you can, so you can stop the water damage around where it's coming in. Because then over time, not only will it affect your roof membrane, your insulation, your cover board, but it's going to start eating away at that steel deck and rust as well. And so that's a real big issue you want to stay ahead of. Yeah. Repair those leaks. Yes.
I think it's interesting you talked about the aesthetic of the ballasted membrane, because everybody wants these white roofs now to reduce the heat island effect and everything. They look beautiful on day one, and then you go up there a couple months later and it looks like a dust storm has settled on your roof membrane and it's brown.
Yes. Yeah.
And I can see, if you're looking down from a multi-level building, that's not the most attractive view.
Yes. Yeah. And so white single ply membrane, you can get it colored. Right. And sometimes that's, added cost if it's special, but it's something to think about. Rooftops, like the built environment, they can make you feel a certain way when you look at them. And so, but you're right, white membranes get very dirty very fast. And the solar reflectivity index, goes down after a couple of years of dirt accumulation. But if you're a really high speed owner, you can get your rooftop cleaned. And so that's always an option.
There's companies that clean your rooftop, huh?
Absolutely.
There you go. Very cool. So when you were talking about this, though, you're talking about the whole system. So it's the flashing, it's, I don't know, the sleeves for pipes, all of that is what we should be looking at kind of on an annual basis.
Yeah. I get a little scatterbrained. Yeah. So you want to make sure, obviously, there's no obstruction to the water. And then, we like to say that the membrane doesn't come with holes in it when it leaves the manufacturer. And so anytime you lay over a membrane onto a surface, it looks great. It's going to be watertight, but then the built environment has penetrations. You have HVAC, rooftop unit curbs, you have all stuff. And so, back to the annual maintenance, if you have a team in-house that knows nothing about roofing, still go check the drains, check for anything weird. If something looks off, take a picture, talk to your roofer. But then again, it's smart to have an expert come in and take a look. Why? Because we're going to look at all of the seams, not only in the roof membrane, but then around any penetration that are adhered or welded to that membrane. And so that's another big way water can get into the rooftop, and you just want to stay ahead of it. And typically it's really small, minor issues. Excuse me. My cat is having issues. Get out of here. All right, we're coming back.
Hey, it's the world we live in. It's pets and kids. Making noise in the background.
Yeah, go have your fur ball somewhere else, please.
Well, I will say, as an architect coming into the world as a facility professional, on my projects as an architect, nothing leaked ever. And on this side of the table, everything leaks at some point. So my perfect world of how roofing works came to a crashing halt on about my first day of employment here. So I'm sure everybody can relate to that one. Well, let's switch over. Is there anything else you want to talk about maintenance?
No, I think it's just a good idea for maintenance. Make sure if you bring in an outside contractor to do maintenance for you, make sure they help you plan, prevent, prepare, and respond to any issues. And so, planning annual maintenance isn't just like, hey, I have this issue and it needs to be patched, or I have a small leak. It's really helping you think through repair and capital costs over time. And so an inspection produces a lot of data, but then the question to the owner is, what are you doing with that data? Data needs to be turned into information. And so based on the data we see, whether it be visual or tangible data with, hey, this is a hole, this is a tear, this is a rip, that data caught during the inspection will help repair information of, hey, this is the repair we suggest to get you watertight. And then this repair will also buy you X number of years back for your rooftop. Or it'll help you capitally of, hey, here's where you're at on your life cycle of your current rooftops. You probably need to start budgeting in the next XYZ years if you want to have a healthy portfolio from the rooftop. And so, annual maintenance really is more than annual maintenance. It's a lifetime of vision for your portfolio. Maintenance helps you prevent small issues, catch them small issues. If you catch them, they typically don't turn into large issues. And then all of that data, if you have an active manufacturer warranty, will help keep that warranty fresh. And it will also help you as owner respond to any kind of insurance inquiry when it comes time, whether it be in an emergency or a policy update, whatever. So annual maintenance is super important. Make sure you have a really good team that can not only go do it, but then house the data appropriately.
Yeah. You just hit on key points for me right there. It's like, what is the expected lifespan remaining of this roof? And then, because we have to start, looking at that from a capital expenditure, and those are big dollars in our
Yes.
world for 1 year,
Yes.
So I think as we, implement a maintenance program that can then begin help us look at when are we going to need to start thinking about getting this thing replaced before our insulation's totally destroyed and
Yes.
the cost is even greater. So I think you hit on some excellent points right there that
Yeah, thank you. And one other point when you think capitally on rooftops and assets in general, sometimes clients come to us and say, hey, what do you think I should be budgeting for in 10 years to replace the rooftop? And I think well, that's a great question to begin with, but then a lot of people forget the whole inflation cost, dollar value in 10 years. And so if they ask us, hey, if I budget 500 grand in 10 years, is that a good idea? Yeah, budget something is a great idea, but actually in 10 years, it's probably gonna be closer to 650,000. You know what I mean?
right.
And so have your contractors help you be able to think. They might not have all the answers, but they can at least ask good questions and make sure you're seeing things clearer.
Sure. Okay. Well, that's kind of a great segue into our next subject where we're going to talk about when it's time to replace a roof, what should we be looking at? I think if there's one type of, call we get, it's from roofers, and they try to sell us everything from what I'll call high performance, membrane type roof systems
Sure.
to we're going to cover your, membrane roof with a metal roof system, or we're going to spray foam um, a roof system that looks like the top of the moon or the surface of the moon.
Yeah.
Much cheaper alternatives, but there's a definite cost to it. So
Yeah.
how should we go about like determining what makes sense and what is really a band-aid approach that's going to cost more money down the line to take care of?
Yeah, that's a good question. One of the things that struck me in the roofing industry, Burke, was there's this entrepreneurial spirit that's I, I don't know how quite to describe it yet. I still need to think about it, but it's an industry that has enough mystery to where a lot of people like to step into it and figure it out. And so I think that's what we see when we see all these ideas and cool things. I'm not saying it's a bad thing. I just,
Right.
it depends on your strategy. There are building owners, private owners that want to spend as the least amount of money possible, and they will find solutions that can do that.
Right.
Now, as a public agency that has children under it, our my opinion and probably any wise vendor or contractor's opinion should be you need a good product. Now, how good does it have to be? That's a question up to your team and the
Right.
ultimate vision of the district. Some questions to ask. I'd be real curious if you asked the foam guys and girls and uh, the coatings and all those have a place. I'm not saying they don't, but geography and weather matter. And so the question number one should be, where is your building? Um, here in the Midwest, it's far different than West Coast, than the
Right.
Northwest and the East Coast. What type of building do you have? Typically, public agencies, school districts, it's fairly straightforward. You're not, freezer boxes where you need all this crazy thermal protection, all that jazz. And then, a really important question is, what is the strategy when you think of performance versus cost? And so, yeah, you can have a roof that performs and it's real low cost, or you can have a roof that has theoretically the best performance on earth and you're going to pay for it. Or you can have something in the middle of, man, I'm going to get really good performance and I'm going to pay a fair cost. So I
Right.
win as owner, and then my contractor wins as a contractor.
Right.
How long will you occupy the building? We see a lot of old rooftops, especially in school districts, that are on the fringe. The district doesn't know if they're going to demo in 5 years. They don't know if they're going to, repurpose it or going to have a bunch of money come in so they can take care of everything. That's a huge question: is how long will this building be occupied? And the answer to that could point you in a real clear direction of, hey, I'm going to go for this really great product, or I'm going to go for this temporary product that'll buy me a couple of years.
Right.
And then, what is your existing roof and what is your experience of it? So I think those are really good questions to ask as you think about a replacement. And so, typically in a school, we see a lot of bond work come in for new stuff, and cost really is not that much of an issue.
Right.
But then we also see school districts that have to do work and it's not covered under a current bond, and so
Right.
their approach is far different. And so it's a lot of questions, and I don't want to make it more difficult than it has to be, but it's a conversation that has to happen. And I think a good roofing vendor contractor will explore that with you, as opposed to just telling you what to do.
Right.
We
Yeah.
can always tell you what to do, but we want to make sure it's the right choice based on all of these questions.
Yeah. I think in my mind, you hit all the biggest things that I would look at. I mean, because really, at the end of the day, for us, it's about it ultimately boils down to being everything we do is for the kids.
Yes,
But we also have limited budgets, and trying to get the most value for our dollar in a public environment is really where I'm at. It's not necessarily going with the cheapest unless there's a reason we're going with the cheapest. But if we
absolutely.
know we're going to have this building for another 30 years, that's probably not the place I want to be cheap, you know?
Yeah,
I want to get the most value for our dollars because they are limited. So
yes. Burke, what was your experience in design as an architect when you thought about rooftops? Did you?
I think we had a lot of those same kind of conversations with clients.
Yeah,
A lot of them just simply didn't have enough knowledge to really make a decision.
sure.
You know,
Yeah,
they didn't like what they had, or they heard this other guy liked this kind, and so that's kind of where we started.
yeah,
Um, so, do you think if we're thinking about this, I mean, as an architect, I did roofing projects where we came and drew the whole building and detailed all the flashings and all of that kind of thing, to go out to bid. Um, if you're going to bid a project, do you need that level of detail to be able to go out and get competitive bids? Or can you
yeah.
run the scope of work that's good enough?
Yeah, that's a great question. And so yeah, so the question is when you think about big replacement projects as a public agency, you guys are required to bid. Is that
Right.
correct? Like per
Yeah,
your
I think everybody probably
state?
has different laws and rules
Yeah.
regarding it. Yeah, I mean, at least in Kansas, if we're spending, I think, more than 20,000, we
Yep.
need to bid it. So,
Yeah. So if you're bidding, and strategy is everything here. And so if you're bidding work, our recommendation is to find a contractor, a roofing expert roofer that can help you with that scope. Um, Now this can go two ways. You could have the roofer design it for you, and what the roofer will do is they'll use their institutional knowledge, and then they'll most likely go to a manufacturer to help with design. That way, the public agency school district is very well taken care of. Um, as a owner's rep in a public agency, you can also lean heavily on your design teams. And so if you have an architect that you use, they can certainly design something for you. But the real world, Burke, sometimes architects miss stuff. And sometimes it can be interpreted in many different ways. And so if you have a scope or a drawing that's not as clear as it should be, and it's a public bid, you might get 6 different options on bid day when you're opening it, and you'll be even more confused than you were before the project. And
right.
so that's what that's what we don't like. Now, if you want 6 different roofers to come in and bid, that's great, but uh, have a professional team of experts, roofing experts in particular, help design it for you if you're going to go that route. Um,
Yeah.
Another way is a cooperative play. And so we've seen in the state a couple options available to public agencies where you can limit the bidders that come in. And then there are also options sometimes where you can just work with one vendor and proceed that way via the cooperative experience. And, it's the same thing. You'll have a great design, great scope of work, and then you'll have a great number. And then you just keep going and start the project. So,
I think most people are probably familiar with what the co-op kind of purchasing works like, but
sure.
essentially, the membrane or the roofing system has been pre-negotiated with the co-op, the cost has been. And so then that allows us as a public agency to purchase directly from them or through the co-op to get the project done without having to open it up and bid it to every roofer under the sun.
That's
I
right.
mean, in a
And
nutshell, that's
yeah, and I think a lot of public agencies don't realize that roofing can be covered under their co-op. And so that's just a fun question to ask. If you're an owner or a public agency's rep, uh, you probably order a ton of stuff through a co-op, but I bet you haven't thought lately about a rooftop project. And so just fun to explore that and see what kind of value it could bring, or maybe it doesn't bring you value. So
right. So I'll ask the tough question about that. So, do you find that the co-op pricing for is competitive against what it would be in a bid environment for the
yeah,
material?
yeah,
Okay,
I think so. Yeah, the whole idea behind the co-op, and I know there's skepticism, but any cost in a co-op is third party checked. You know what I mean? So it's not just a blind number accepted. But that's ultimately up to the client, the owner. And so, a lot of people find value. Um, I'm not saying it is, but let's say the co-op theoretically is a higher cost, just a little bit. Some people find value in accepting that when they think of the alternative of all the time and resources spent reviewing bids back and forth. The data, the typical bidding process is typically 250, 300 days for large projects. And we're talking like construction in general. Um,
right.
Co-ops literally can get that kind of stuff, that timeline down to like a month or two, depending on the magnitude. And so the amount of time spent, sometimes you got to ask yourselves, is it worth it? Even if I'm thinking co-ops might be a little higher, which I'm not saying they are,
Right.
is it worth that trade-off of gaining more time in your schedule to lock in your vendors quickly to accomplish what we need to build this space for our kids. And we're not going to lose time because we have to review 6 bids. It just, sometimes it's insane. But it's the way the system works, and we'll gladly do it. But we'll always bring up the idea with the public agency of a co-op play if possible. And
Yeah.
so,
I mean, you
but
figure in that.
it's protected by law, and the third party checks the number and makes sure it's market appropriate. And so then the owner has to decide if it's market appropriate at the end of the day.
Right. Well, and I think too, it's the bidding process, but it's also all the Board of Education approvals we need to get that add to that timeline and can
Yes.
make it very difficult when you're evaluating bids and making sure that it meets the bid requirements and then trying to hit specific board meeting dates and then trying to do all of that in time to get the work done in a very tight schedule over the summer or over spring break or over winter
Yes.
break, something like that. So there's a lot of balls in the air when you start thinking about how to put these projects together for sure.
Yeah, absolutely. And then, typically co-ops are good at separating scopes of work. And so they theoretically, they can save you design fees. They can save some fees on the GC. And if you're a GC, don't hate me. It's the way it is. Sometimes you don't need to be nestled under an architect GC team in order to do a roof replacement project. But that's where a partnership comes in with your roofing contractor. And that's what matters. You have to be able to trust your people, your teams, and have really hard combos of, hey, how do we add value here? And if it's not what roofing contractor wants, what is it? And we'll fight to the death to get you what you need. So
Fantastic. I mean, I think we pretty well covered it. Is there anything you want to add to it that we didn't check off?
no, I think roofing's really fun. And I think if you find a good roofing contractor you like to work with, just work with them forever, Burke.
There's your pitch right there. So, okay. Here's what we do with everybody on the podcast is we do like 3 rapid fire questions. So get ready.
Yes.
So how would your parents describe what you do for a living?
Oh man, I have a great family and I do something every day. I'm not even sure they know what I do. Something in construction.
Okay, there you go. So are you a digital planner guy or a paper planner guy?
Oh Lordy. Outlook calendar account is a planner.
Yeah, that'd be a planner, but like just for your notes and tasks and that kind of thing.
So I am a lefty, and I probably need to go back to school to learn how to write. And so anything that requires me to write, I try not to do. And so I literally just put it in my calendar and I leave it at that. I have to get better at planning because I want to start journaling again. And I write, but then I can't read what I wrote. And it's like, no use. I'm not writing anything ever again.
I always want to start journaling and then I like go crazy on day one and write like a page and then the next day I'm like, what do I write about? So then it turns in so then I've tried like the one sentence, like I'm only gonna write one sentence every day.
Oh,
And that's kind of interesting, but I'm just terrible at being consistent. So
yeah.
journaling doesn't
Yeah.
work.
And then the thing about journaling is somebody's going to read it some. And I think anything of value that comes out of you onto a piece of paper, it's probably going to be pretty deep and personal. And so
Right.
that's a limiting factor for me, but it's just an excuse, really.
Yeah, I agree. So what time of day do you get your best work done? Morning
Oh
or afternoon?
yes, I am a morning person, so I'm up and at it, and I like to have some quiet time in the morning. I like to read. I like to work out if I can, but yeah, definitely morning, early afternoon, because 3, 4 o'clock comes around and it's like my brain just is gone.
Yep.
And then I get home and I play with my kids for a few hours, which is phenomenal. But then 8:30 p.m. comes around and it's like I fought a world war. Like I'm so tired. And so morning. How about you?
Morning for sure.
Morning. Okay.
Yep. I get big stuff done in the morning, little things and planning in the afternoon. That's pretty much what I do.
Nice. I sometimes I have to tell people I am not useful anymore today. And that typically will happen around 3 or 4 p.m.
Yeah.
But
Yeah. It's interesting because it's in schools. A lot of times, if we want to have meetings that involve people in the buildings, those meetings start at 3:30 or 4 in the afternoon.
yeah,
And I kind
that'd
of
be
like
tough.
drink some caffeine or get a coffee or something to get up and ready to run those kind of
Yeah,
things.
man, I'm getting ready for bed by then, Burke.
I know, I know. Well, Dane, I really appreciate you coming on. So it's your chance to give the Mahaney pitch. Tell us about Mahaney,
Yeah,
how people can get a hold of you, what you guys have to offer, that kind of thing.
yeah, Burke, thankful for the time. It's great to be here. And so, yeah, Mahaney Group, we're called Mahaney now. I'll explain. But originally, we started in 1888 in Wichita, and so we've been around for quite a while. There's a bunch of institutional knowledge that's been passed down. Started as commercial roofing, but now we have a really robust services team for roofing. We have an architectural metal panel division. We have a steel division, and then kind of an equipment division where we rent out cranes and other equipment. And so what started as a commercial roofer has turned into kind of a specialty subcontractor experience. And so Mark Bolt was the owner of Mahaney for quite a long time. And recently, in the last 6 months, he has sold to a company out of Chicago called Tecta. And so local experience should be the same and even better now. But we're part of a network of 90 other roofers now in the nation where we can talk about resourcing and trade material and trade labor. And so it's a big win for our Wichita clients, for Kansas clients, and our regional clients. And so we look forward to just growing and making the best relationships ever, and then do business in roofing or steel or metals or whatever that looks like. And so yeah, Mahaney Group, you can call me 316-650-2032, or send me an email at dane@mahaneygroup.com, or go to our website, mahaneygroup.com, and go from there.
Fantastic. I'll include all that in the show notes as well so that if someone
Thank
wants
you.
to get it, they'll be able to click and dial or click and go to your website. So, Dane, thanks so much for coming on to School Facilities and Operations. Every week, we're going to bring you either an interview like this with Dane, with some vendor that are important to facilities professionals, or we're going to bring an interview with a school director of facilities or some title like that, and draw some nuggets of wisdom out of them. So thanks again, Dane. I really appreciate you coming on.
Yeah, thanks, Berg.